Hello, welcome to the audiobook of my Yu-Gi-Oh! Fighters fanfic, Crimson Star Priestess. If you are enjoying this series, make sure to leave a like, comment and subscribe to my channel for updates. The link to the fanfic and my Discord server are in the description below. I do not own any Yu-Gi-Oh! Fighters characters, I only own my original characters. It was a peaceful early January afternoon. I sat by the coffee table in my bedroom and had afternoon tea, enjoying the silence. The last few months had been busy and slightly hectic, but I had enjoyed it, especially Goodwin's birthday party, the Christmas Eve, and celebrating the New Year with Sora and designers. It felt a bit surreal that so much had happened in such a short time. Things like this never happened back in my world. My right hand that held the teacup froze when these thoughts came flowing into my mind. I bit my bottom lip softly as I placed down the cup on the coffee table. My hands rested on my lap as I lowered my head, my bangs covering my eyes. Due to everything that happened around me ever since the Crimson Dragon brought me to this dimension, I had nearly forgotten about my original dimension and my family. Now that I thought about it, I felt ashamed for forgetting my own flesh and blood. Were my parents and big brother worried about me? Were they still looking for me? Or was there a time difference between the two worlds? What if my world's time moved faster than here? What if my parents were already... I removed my glasses as I felt wetness forming in my eyes. I put down the glasses next to the teacup and picked up a tissue from the pocket of my pants to wipe the tears. It didn't really help as the tears slowly started pouring down my cheeks the more I thought about my biological family. I wished I could somehow contact and tell them I was safe, but the Crimson Dragon told me that he had used up too much of his energy to create a wormhole to bring me to his dimension. This meant he needed time to restore all that energy to create a new wormhole, but a much smaller one, so I could send a letter to my parents. Even so, I missed my family, especially my mother. She was the biggest support in my life, both as a child and as an adult. I missed talking to her and share my thoughts and have our deep conversations. Dad was a good father, but I had a slight difficult time to connect to him because he had his own difficulties with his special needs. I bit my lower lip to stop myself from sobbing, which somehow helped, but it wasn't the right medicine. I needed to talk to someone about my feelings. I couldn't keep them bottled up anymore. I had to let it out. I wiped the tears off my cheeks and took a few deep breaths to calm down enough to leave the room and go talk to Goodwin. He was at the mansion since it was Sunday, so I hoped this was perfect timing, unless he was too busy. I got up from the couch and walked towards the door. I was just about to open it when a knock echoed from the other side. "Estelle, it's me," Goodwin called. "May I come in?" Sure, I replied. Was Goodwin a psychic or what? Just as I wanted to see him, he actually came to me. The door opened as Goodwin stepped into my bedroom. He raised an eyebrow when he saw I was only inches away from the door, or so I thought. "Estelle, were you crying?" he asked, his voice sounding a bit concerned. "Yes," I nodded slowly. "But how did you know?" "Your eyes are red and I can see unshed tears on them," Goodwin replied. "Now come." He gently wrapped an arm around my shoulders and led me back to the couch. We sat down and remained silent a couple of seconds as my adoptive father removed his arm. "Tell me, what were you upset about?" he asked softly. I looked down on my lap and found my fingers being more interesting than looking up and expose my sad face. My family, I miss them a lot, especially my mother. Sometimes I wish to give her a hug or even a little kiss on top of her head as I've always done. I miss her warm hugs, her scent, her giving me comfort when I need it. The tears returned as I spoke about my mother. I removed my glasses and tried wiping the tears, but it was useless. I had no control of my tears now. The dam had been overflowed. Even though I was often composed and kept myself in check, I had to let it out now. I was human too. Things would be too much for me to handle at some point. I felt Goodwin's arms wrap around me as he brought me into a warm hug. I leaned my face against his shoulder and sobbed onto him. I was afraid to ask a hug from him, but he did it before I could say a word. I cried for a few minutes until I felt like the dam was empty. I moved away from Goodwin, feeling a bit exhausted, and wiped my wet cheeks with my hands and wiped them on my pants. "Are you okay?" Goodwin asked softly. "A little," I nodded tiredly. "I'm sorry. I really needed this." "I understand," Goodwin replied as he gently patted me on my shoulder. "I cannot speak for your parents, but I'm certain they know you are alive and safe, and they will be waiting for you. Although, I admit, when the time comes for you to return to your dimension, I'm going to miss you." "I'm going to miss you and everyone else too," I smiled tiredly. "But I don't know if I want to go back or stay here. I received so much in this world that filled the empty gaps in my heart and soul." "I'm sure in due time you will make the final decision. Speaking of, there was a reason why I came to you." I hummed confusedly. "I've been keeping this a secret, but I believe it's time you learn about it. Shortly after you officially became my daughter, I've received multiple letters from rich families about marriage proposals." "Marriage proposals?" I exclaimed in disbelief, suddenly feeling energized again. "You mean arranged marriage?" "Yes," Goodwin nodded. "Mothers and fathers want to introduce their sons and—" "No," I said straight away. "I don't want any arranged marriage. If I want to get married, I want to marry the man I love. Period." Goodwin chuckled. "I suspected that, so I've already declined the proposals. However, some families are a bit persistent, so I'm afraid you have to personally write a reply to decline them." "I will," I nodded. "Besides that, I don't want to settle down until I'm certain what is going to happen to me once my duty in your word is done." A wise decision. The first 2 weeks of January were relatively calm. Designers Carly and I celebrated Jack's birthday at the garage. I bought him a coffee machine and coffee cartridges so he could make his own coffee and not spend thousands of yen at the cafe across the plaza. Misty, Aki and I helped Carly to come up with a great gift a week before the party. The reporter wanted to give herself to him, all tied up in an amethyst ribbon, and wait for him in her apartment, but the rest of us told her to dump the dirty gift. Instead, Carly made 12 coupons to Jack that he could redeem one once a month for a personal fortune telling with real tarot cards, which she got from Misty after a trip abroad. However, the peace broke when unexpected things began happening. It had been a couple of days since Goodwin and I had our big talk. I drove to sector security on my do-runner this particular morning. Goodwin had to leave early because of an issue at HQ, so the limousine wasn't available for me when I had to go to work. I wore my office outfit, but I had added a pair of black wool stockings to keep my legs warm and a long dark grey trench coat. Once I got to the garage of Sector Security and secured my door runner, I removed the trench coat and carried it on my left arm as I held my briefcase in my right hand. I walked toward the elevators, hoping whatever issue was happening had been solved. The office seemed to be calm when I stepped out of the elevator, but I noticed the tension in the air. I ignored it and walked straight to my desk to begin my work. I hung up my coat on a coat rack on the wall behind me, switched the computer on, and unpacked the documents from my briefcase. Most of my work nowadays was about the upcoming WRGP, especially with the security, keep tracks on the teams that had registered so far, and make sure to provide them personal security once the foreign teams would arrive in Japan in 5 months, and so on. The next 2 hours I've been working were pretty calm, but it was broken once the office phone rang. Secretary Goodwin? I answered the call as I held the receiver in my right hand while typing with my other hand. Estelle, bring me the documents of the budget for the World Racing Grand Prix and a cup of coffee. The usual, Goodwin said. Right away, Director. I made him the coffee and brought it to his office along with the requested documents. I noticed he was working with several documents as he threw an eye on his computer every once in a while. Your coffee and the documents, Director, I spoke as I gently put the coffee cup and the documents on the desk. Thank you, Goodwin nodded without looking up. If I may ask, has the issue been solved, the one you were called for in the morning? I asked out of curiosity. The technicians are still working on it, Goodwin replied before he picked up the coffee cup and took a silent sip. It looks like it's a virus invasion, so they're trying to block it. A virus invasion? Who would want to target Sector Security? I asked. We've got several enemies and we've been attacked before, but we've got the best firewalls and technicians. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to identify the enemy nor pinpoint their location. A hacker attack towards Sector Security. Why did I have a feeling the culprits were Iliaster? Goodwin told me he had broken all contacts with them, so were they going for revenge or some kind of preparation for the MechLord Emperors? Director Goodwin! Lazar called panicked as he dashed into the office, but he quickly collected himself when he saw me and bowed softly. Miss Goodwin, pardon my rude intrusion. Vice Director Jaeger, I bowed respectfully to him. What is it, Lazar? Goodwin asked just as I heard a weird noise coming from his computer. The virus has managed to breach Sector Security's firewalls, Lazar reported, resuming his panicked behavior. Every computer in this building is corrupted by the virus and it's getting worse. Everyone is panicking and do not know what to do. Tell everyone to calm down, Goodwin said seriously. Then request for employees who has a hacker background to join the technicians. They must work together to stop the virus. Yes, Director, Lazar saluted before he ran out of the office. I've never seen Lazar act like this before, I mumbled to myself. Estelle, Goodwin said, take a look at this. I walked around the desk to check his computer. The screen was blank, but it shifted from black and white as neon green codes kept popping up. I had very little knowledge of a virus invasion, so I had no idea how to counter it. This looks serious, I commented. Is there any chances the virus could leak out confidential information of Sector Security? There is a high risk to it, yes, Goodwin replied. Estelle, you're in charge of this. Me? I pointed at myself in disbelief. But Director, I have no knowledge about handling a virus. I meant to say that I'll leave you to come up with a solution, Goodwin explained. You are dismissed. I bowed before I left the office and got met by total chaos. The colleagues were restless and worried, talking back and forth as several worked frantically by their computers, trying to get through the virus. I had never witnessed such a scene before, except the section where the technicians were working. Goodwin put this on me, so I had to come up with something and fast. In order to get rid of the virus, we needed a professional hacker. However, most hackers were of the bad type, and I didn't want to take the risk to call a random hacker and let them work here. But there was another solution to this. Yusei. Yusei was a great hacker and had a huge knowledge about programming, but I doubted he could handle such a massive virus. Still, it could be worth a try. I had no other options right now. I went straight to my desk to pick up my smartphone. I scrolled down until I reached Yusei's number and called him. I prayed he wasn't extremely busy at the moment and he could come and give us a helping hand. The phone beeped twice before Yusei answered.
Hello?
Hi Yusei, it's Estelle. I hope I'm not disturbing you.
No, it's okay. I was just about to take a break from the prototype engine Jack, Crow and I've been working on.
Any progress?
Not so much. So why are you calling me? I thought you're at work in sector security.
I am, but we've got a major problem here.
What's wrong?
There's a massive virus invasion going on and every computer at security has been corrupted. The technicians are working furiously to fix it, but there's very little result. So, do you think you could come and try to help us? You can view this as a job offer and I'll pay you for it, whether you fix it or not.
I'll be there in 15 minutes and you don't have to pay me. I'll see you soon.
With that said, he ended the call before I could say something back. Hello? I called and looked at the beeping smartphone confusedly. It wasn't like Yusei to end the call without saying a small bye. In fact, he had been acting a bit odd lately, especially after New Year's. I had noticed he often stood a bit close to me and our hands would often clash against each other. I felt like the relationship between us had changed, but I didn't know if it was a good or bad thing. I shook my head to get rid of those thoughts and hurried to the elevator. I made it down to the lobby and waited for Yusei. The receptionist's computers had also been corrupted by the virus, so things were looking pretty bad. I waited 10 minutes before Yusei stepped into the building. He had a little snow on his shoulders that melted as soon as he got inside. Thank you so much for coming, Yusei. I thanked him when we met up. I hope you didn't break any traffic laws on your way here. Don't worry, I didn't. Yusei chuckled softly before he cast an eye on the panicked receptionists. This looks really bad. It is bad. I nodded as I led him to the elevators. The technicians haven't made a single progress, and now we fear that whoever is attacking security could be after confidential files. We need to stop this as quickly as we can. I understand. Yusei nodded as we stepped into an elevator. Could you show me your computer? I can work from there to deal with the virus. Sure, I nodded. And really, thank you for coming to help us. I'll always help you and our friends, Yusei replied calmly. Don't worry about it, okay? I nodded slowly and turned my eyes at the door of the elevator, trying to avoid eye contact and not freak out that I was alone with Yusei. What was I? A shy fangirl? Well, yes I was. I guided Yusei to my desk once we made it to the top floor. He made himself comfortable in the seat in front of the computer that was full of digits and codes. His eyes moved left and right as he checked the screen and all the glowing codes, already getting into a very serious mode. "What do you think?" I asked softly as I stood next to him. "It looks tough, but I give it a shot," Yusei nodded. "You brought a satellite reject to sector security, Miss Secretary?" A nasty, familiar voice spoke up. I held back a growl, but I allowed my eyes to glare as I looked up to see Natsumi walk past the desk, struttling on her high heels and throwing her hair over her shoulder. "You're so desperate to solve the hacker attack that you randomly picked up a criminal from the streets?" Natsumi continued taunting me. I wanted to give her a big slap on her face so badly, but I held back the urge to get violent with her. I could be more mature than her by not taking the bait. "Never underestimate my reliable connections, Miss Natsumi," I replied with the hint of a soft growl. A hand rested on my left hand and gave it a soft squeeze. Even though his eyes were on the computer screen and looked focused, Yusei was holding me back from keeping arguing with Natsumi. "Don't get agitated by her, Estelle," he said softly. I nodded slowly in slight shame. "Sorry, I don't like hearing others talk down my friends." "I've dealt with worse," Yusei replied. "There will always be some discrimination." I was impressed how Yusei could be so mature. I wondered if it really was part of his personality, or he had to grow up fast to act like the grown-up whenever Jack and Crow or even Kalin had their arguments. "How long do you think it will take to fix this?" I asked him about the virus attack. "It depends on the hacker's skills," Yusei explained. "It could take an hour or two. I really can't say an estimated time." "It's okay," I nodded as I put my hand on his shoulder and gave it a soft squeeze. "I trust you. Beat the bad guys with your magic." Yusei was busy for the last hour and a half. He typed like crazy on the keyboard while dealing with the virus. He was in such a deep concentration while I came back with a cup of coffee for him. I found out he liked his coffee black with no milk, but 2 teaspoons of sugar. I put down the cup a bit away from the keyboard so he wouldn't accidentally knock it down while reaching for it. "Estelle," a new voice spoke up, making me look over my shoulder. "I heard you got quite the handsome man to deal with the hackers." Sumino Fuyuka was another colleague of mine who worked on the top office. She was 26 years old, tall, but not as tall as me, and had long black hair, blue eyes, and fair skin. Compared to Natsumi, she was nice and helpful. When I was new at sector security and got confused over something, she explained it until I understood it. "Is he your boyfriend?" Fuyuka continued asking. Her question made me blush and softly elbow her side. "No, he's just a friend." "Sure." Fuyuka pulled the word a bit with a mischievous grin. "You're friends with the winner of the Fortune Cup, who's got quite the looks and the skills of a hacker." "Oh, hush," I said softly with red cheeks, fearing Yusei could hear all of this. "Yusei can't work if we keep chit-chatting around him." "Don't worry about it," Yusei suddenly spoke up. "I'm done." "Really?" Fuyuka said in shock. "That's amazing! I'll report it to the director right away." She didn't hesitate to knock on Goodwin's office's door before entering to deliver the good news. I walked around the desk to check the computer, and indeed, the screen was back to normal. It showed the Nebula wallpaper I had picked out, and every single file I had was still there. "Wow, it's like the attack never happened," I commented with a smile. "You're amazing, Yusei." "You fixed it?" Natsumi exclaimed in disbelief from her desk that was a few meters from mine. Miss, you just need to reboot your PC and everything will be fine, Yusei replied calmly, ignoring her irritated growl. I snapped my head up when I heard the door to Goodwin's office open. My adoptive father and Fuyuka stepped out, but Goodwin went straight to my desk with a poker face. At first, I thought he was going to scold me for bringing someone outside of sector security, but I quickly shook off those thoughts. He knew Yusei and what he was capable of. I had a feeling you would call for Yusei, Estelle, Goodwin said with a very small smile at the corner of his lips. Goodwin. Yusei stood up and nodded his head in greeting. Thank you for your help, Yusei. Goodwin nodded in return. I'll send you the compensation money to your bank account later today. I didn't do this for the money, Yusei shook his head. I did this to help my friend. But I insist, Goodwin said. You've helped us immensely. Yusei was about to continue the back and forth game before I lightly elbowed his side, silently telling him to accept the reward or else they would stay like this for a long time. Only if you insist, Director, Yusei sighed. Goodwin nodded with a slightly bigger smile. Excellent, he said. Estelle, you can go and take the rest of the day off. Yes, Director, I nodded. Want to join me for a late lunch, Yusei? The least I can do is to treat you. Sure, Yusei nodded. I packed my stuff into my briefcase before I grabbed my coat to leave. Yusei followed me to the elevators. Both of us were quiet for a short time in the elevator until Yusei spoke up. Have there been similar attacks towards sector security before? From what Goodwin told me, there's been a few occasions, but never as intense as this, I replied. Did you find something and didn't tell Goodwin? No, it's not that, Yusei shook his head. Normally, a virus invasion happens when the enemy is looking for confidential and private information from the target and steals it and then erases all the data from the main source. I've checked some files, only their codes, and I didn't see any indications of erased files or manipulation with the data. So, someone just decided to hack the computers at security for fun? I questioned. Apparently, Yusei replied. I couldn't track down their location, so I don't know if the hackers are in Japan or in another country. I remained silent as I thought about my prediction. This virus invasion could have been a forewarning about Iliaster's next move, meaning the Mechlord Emperors were on their way. The second war with Iliaster is coming.